Hey everybody, how you doing today? Just coming in to do my first installment of my Christian Verses Debunked series. But before I get into that, I just want to take an opportunity right now. I don't usually do this on my YouTube channel. I don't ever do this. I've never done this. But I'm going to do it for a friend of mine. I have a very good friend that I've known for close to 20 years. Who's a very important person in my life, and our families have gone through a lot together, and her husband is going through cancer. To say that these people were in a bind before this happened is an understatement. He was already in bad health with diabetes, and now he's diagnosed with stage 3 lung cancer. So anyways, he's really fighting. He's having to go through chemo. He'll have to have surgery and radiation and all of the whole bells and whistles. Problem is that in the meantime, she's unable to work. She can't bring any money into the house. She's having a hard time staying afloat. These people are not connected to a church, and their family influence is sporadic, let's put it that way. Anyway, they've started a GoFundMe account page, and I'm pleading with anybody who's watching my videos, if you are considering seeding money anywhere this month, even if it's $20, would you please consider helping this family out? They're really struggling, and it would really help them out a lot. So if you choose to want to donate, please go to GoFundMe.com. His name is Elder, E-L-D-E-R, Carranza, C-A-R-R-A-N-Z-A. Any type of donation will help, you guys. No donation is too small. These guys are really struggling, and they're going to be going through it for at least the next 6 months while he's getting his treatments. If you guys are able to seed anything anywhere, please, I beg of you, reach out in kindness and help this family. Okay? All right. That having been said, I want to start with my first verse is going to be Matthew 5:17. This is one of my favorite verses. It is also one of the most misused verses. I can't tell you how many churches I've sat in and heard the pastor glean through this verse like it was nothing, and basically use it to say that if your righteousness isn't as good as the Pharisees and the sages, that you're not going to get into heaven. So why bother? Why bother do it? So I'm going to do this for you instead. So in my encounters with Christians, I have found that many New Testament verses are often misunderstood. And in this series of videos, I hope to break those verses apart, not just for them to be understood, but also so that we can easily correct others about them. It's going to be a series of videos. We're just going to do one portion of scripture per video, and there's a lot of them that I want to tackle. As Torah observant or pursuant believers, we use the entire Bible to decipher what is being said in the New Testament. And if you don't use the Old Testament as your foundation, you can't understand the New Testament. And also, it goes without saying that if one does not have the proper understanding of the fact that there are 2 houses of Israel to this day, then they likely really won't understand anything else in their Bible. So, we have been taught and continue to teach a very westernized view of our Bible, and have a very hard time understanding Hebraic context. I've actually had people tell me, why do I have to have Hebraic context to understand my Bible? Well, because it's a Hebraic book. I mean, honestly, the things that come out of people's mouths just baffle me. throughout history, I want to talk a little bit about this. Throughout history, there have been these different epochs, okay? And these epochs are periods of time that are radically different from any other epoch, okay? So in fact, if you live in one epoch, you would struggle and likely not understand another one at all. And I think that we can safely say that's happening today. Because without trying to put yourself in that frame of mind, you're setting yourself up to fail. So I bring this up. As believers, we are trying to make sense of these epochs that occurred up to 6,000 years ago. And if we aren't looking through the proper lenses, we will get it wrong every time. So the first epoch we see is the creation epoch. And this epoch consists of 6 days of creation and the very first Sabbath rest. So can you honestly say that you understand? I mean, I know we can imagine, but can you honestly say that you understand and can contextualize what it was like to be there as Yahweh the Almighty pushed, pulled, turned, twisted, and bent our planet into creation? Could you just imagine what was going on in those 6 days? No, all we can do is imagine, but we'll never know what it was really like to be there. Okay? So after the creation epoch, we move into the Edenian epoch, and this consists of the time that Adam and Eve were in the garden walking with Elohim. So again, I have to ask you, can you even fathom what that was like? Can you actually, I mean, we can imagine. There's a difference between fathoming and imagine and actually knowing. Okay, can you actually fathom sitting there and having a conversation with a lion and petting a lion and not having to run away from it? Can you actually fathom what it was like to sit there while Adam named every created being? I mean, we can't possibly know what that was like. Okay, we can't possibly know what it was like to live without shame, to live without guilt or condemnation, to live without the knowledge of all of the things that are wrong in our world today. We can't imagine that. Okay, we can't fathom that. It was a completely different world. Okay, so after the Edenian epoch, we move into what's called the antediluvian epoch. And this is the period. Now this one's really bad. Think about this. This is the period that was after the fall, but before the flood. Okay, so now we have gone from having all of this perfection in the garden to having this Mad Max. I mean, I'm just using whatever words I could possibly use to describe this type of an environment, but this Mad Max type dystopian society where now all of a sudden there's all these creatures from the fallen condition. We have angels coming down and mating with the daughters of Eve and making all kinds of abominations and Nephilims. And I mean, just try to wrap your head around what was going on in this time period, but we'll never really know what it was like because we can't logically transport ourselves into that type of world. I mean, just think, and if we, I mean, think about, okay, so just think about the hurricanes and stuff where people were immediately displaced from their homes and without food, without water, without power, you know, without anything. They lost everything just like that. And imagine how traumatic that was. That still does not even come close to trying to imagine what this life was like. Okay, the evil was so prominent in the world that Yahweh came and gone. Flooded the whole world. In an instant, everything was gone. Except for Noah and his family. So, I mean, just, can you imagine? You're in the garden 1 second. and then you're put out. I mean, imagine going from that to this. The trauma that likely went along with that. Can you imagine how brutal this time period was? How ungodly. I mean, it's just so hard to wrap our minds around. I mean, think about it in today's context, okay? So, like, things happen that are evil today, like these school shootings, they're evil. It is hard for us to wrap our minds around somebody walking into a school because we're good people, okay? It's hard for us to even imagine what would drive somebody to do something like that. You see what I'm saying? And that's in our epoch. Now let's try and figure out what they're doing 4 epochs ago. And it's almost impossible to do. Okay? So it's difficult to go back to each pre-existing epoch, but try and go back 3 or 4. Okay? It's almost impossible. I know the Bible says that in the end days will be like the days of Noah, but I don't think it's possible for us today to wrap our heads around how wicked that time truly was. Okay? That Yahweh felt the need to destroy the entire world. We're ramping up, don't get me wrong, but I'm willing to bet it's going to get so much worse before Yeshua returns. My dad told me when I was 13 years old, I'll never forget this, my dad told me, he said, mankind is going to be on the brink of destroying itself when you'll see Yeshua return. You guys are looking for temples to be built and all of this stuff. I'm just looking for mankind to be on the brink of destruction. That's all I care about. Because that's when I'm going to look up, because my redemption is near. Okay, so outside of creating these pictures in our mind with the help from the Bible stories, we can never actually understand the full scope of what was going on in these time periods. We can do our best through using the scriptures along with other historical books and extra non-canonized books such as Jubilees, Enoch, the apocryphal writings, and even Jasher. But we can never really know what these periods were like when the miracles and the power of Yahweh was very interactive with his people. Now, just imagine trying to make sense of these things without having a context for such things, or worse, thinking you don't even need a context. That's even worse than not knowing what the context is, but thinking that you're so perfect that you don't even need a context. You're going to understand it no matter what. You need a context. So this is the problem that I see among believers today. Everyone is so content to rely upon their teacher's interpretation instead of actually questioning and studying things out for themselves, and which is exactly why I'm doing this study. This is an insane stumbling block to people. Okay, and the reason I want to go through these verses and study them out myself is because it's not enough for me to have Jim Staley or Zach Bauer or any of these other people I listen to. It's not enough for me to have them tell me what they think that verse is. I want to go back. I want to see the words myself. I want to see it myself, and so should you. You should want to see these things for yourself. Okay, we can't truly explain what it is we know unless we know it with our own eyes, unless we do it with our own eyes. So the verse we're going to focus on today is Matthew 5:17 through 19. That verse reads as follows: "Do not think that I came to abolish the law or the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill. For truly I say to you, until heaven and earth pass away, not the smallest letter or stroke shall pass from the law until all is fulfilled. Whoever then breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever keeps and teaches them, he shall be called the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. Sorry. I'm going to try and move my screen here, and so I don't have to keep moving my head back and forth, because it's kind of messing me up a little bit there. So that's the verse we're going to focus on today. We're going to focus on two key words in this verse. The first is abolish. Now, some of your translations might say destroy. Some of them might say abolish. So this word is actually in the Greek. Sorry, my cord got in the way. It's actually Strong's G2647, and the word is katalaio, and it means the following. It means to throw down, to come to naught, to overthrow, to dissolve, to disunite, to demolish, or to destroy. Okay? Now, if you were using the translation that says destroy, then it would be to abolish. Basically the same thing. But this is what we know. When Yeshua says, I did not come to abolish the law and the prophets, he is basically saying, I did not come to throw down the law and the prophets. Or, I did not come to overthrow the law and the prophets. I did not come to dissolve the law and the prophets. I did not come to disunite, to demolish, or to destroy the law and the prophets. And this is what's being preached to people in churches today, that Yeshua did away with the law. We no longer have to keep the law. Well, this is a very scary thing, because the rest of that verse says that if you're one of those people who's teaching that, you are the least in the kingdom of heaven. Is that where you want to be? You're a teacher. Is that where you want to be? Okay? And all of you Christians out there who are parroting what your teachers are telling you, now you're the least in the kingdom of the heavens. You know, you guys, this is a long life, and we're going to live our life for Yahweh. It's a very long life. Now, it can be a very happy and fulfilled life by living for Yahweh, don't get me wrong, but it's a very long life nonetheless. And I don't want to think about doing the things that I do and having this relationship with God and not having it mean anything, to where when I finally get to a point where I'm either invited to the table or not, that I don't get invited to the table. Okay? If you're one of these people who are out there saying the law is done away with, you no longer have to keep those commandments, that law is a burden, boys and girls, you are not going to be invited. Okay? It doesn't mean that you might not get there, because some of you still might get there. But whether or not you get to sit at the table with your king is what's in question here. Okay? So pay attention to this. Okay? So he did not come to do any of those things. Okay? Now that's according to your Greek word. Okay? Which is, once again, katalaio, or something like that. Kataleo, katalaio. I don't know. I'm not Greek. Anyways, so it should be very clear that our Messiah did not come to do any of these things to the Torah. The next word we're going to look at is the word fulfill, okay, which is G4137. These can all be found in your Strong's Concordance, which a lot of you probably know already. Now I'm going to tell you now to please put on your critical thinking cap, okay, just for a moment, because this is one that you will likely think or have been told that it means to end. And this word is plaru, and it means the following. This is going to blow your mind. To make full, to fill up, to cause to abound, to furnish, to supply liberally, to make complete in every particular, to render perfect, to execute, to cram, to level up, to fully preach, perfect, or supply. I will tell you that I didn't even list all of the positives here. And out of all of them are three definitions that the church has decided the word to mean. And they are the following: to expire, to complete, or to end. So out of all of those definitions, They're going to go with these 3 that are at the bottom of the list. Why would they do that? Could it be more easy? Now, this is where the critical thinking part comes in. Based on this information and these definitions, do you believe that this verse reads like this? Do not think that I came to abolish the law or the prophets. I did not come to abolish them, but to end them. For truly I say to you, until heaven or earth pass away, not the smallest letter or stroke shall pass from the law until all is fulfilled. Whoever then breaks one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same shall be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever keeps and teaches them, he shall be called greatest in the kingdom of the heaven. Now, let me also just throw this in here, because usually they will pair this verse up with the verse, and I can't remember the chapter and verse offhand, but y'all have heard it before, where Jesus is on the cross, Yeshua is on the cross, and he says, it is finished. That's what they will usually pair up with this verse to say, see, it's finished. It's all fulfilled. It's all been done for you. So, reading this verse in context, you believe that the Messiah said he did not come to end the law, but to end the law. That is logically what you're saying this verse says. I want you to think about that for a minute. You also don't take into account the fact that it says, until heaven and earth pass away. And I'm pretty sure that hasn't happened yet. We're all still sitting here. Of course, you know, you might have the preterists out there who think we're already in the millennium, which is complete and total nonsense in my opinion. I don't even get into it with them anymore. They've got that Bible so twisted up and bent around it. I don't even know. Honestly, I don't even care. Messiah says he came to fulfill the law. Your church has taught you that that means to end, but that's a lie and a really bad translation. Our Messiah makes not only the law perfect, but also makes us perfect by imitating him and walking as he walked. Why wouldn't you want that? He tells us time and time again to imitate him, to do as I do. His doctrine is not his own. He came to preach the Father's doctrine. This is the Father's doctrine. So he fully preached the law, and he came to execute it among his people. He supplied the law liberally to his followers, and even tried to correct the religious establishment of that day. When we keep and guard the Torah in the Spirit through our Messiah, we are made perfect. He says, be perfect as I am perfect. Be holy as I am holy. How do we do that? Okay? So, you have been lied to, just as believers of that day were. They were lied to by people who were supposed to guard their spiritual interests. People who forsook what was good and taught doctrines and traditions of man, just like they do today. God tells us what is good. He tells us, I give you good doctrine. Forsake not my Torah. It's so simple, you guys. It's so simple. Listen, you can be sincere in all that you have been taught and still be wrong. You can do that. In fact, you Christians sit there and tell us how Mormons are sincerely wrong all the time. And Jehovah's Witnesses are sincerely wrong all the time. And Buddhists are sincerely wrong all the time. And the Jews are wrong all the time. And everybody's wrong but you. But guess what? It is time for an audit of the church. It is time for the church to wake up and look at yourself in the mirror. Okay? Because you're not properly reading your Bible. Period. This is just the first verse we're going to do in this series. It's going to It's going to get crazy up in here. I pray that you hear me today, you guys. I really do. I pray that you hear me today and that you do not harden your hearts. Yahweh is waking up his sleepers and he is gathering his remnant. I pray that you heed his call. I pray that you stay tuned for my next video, and I'm going to continue to tackle these verses one by one, and we can talk about them. Please feel free to comment, subscribe, and like this video. Share this video with your friends. I think it's time that we really open our Bibles and we stop listening to what everybody else is trying to cram down our throats, and we start cramming down what is good. Let's gobble up this word. Let's wake up, people. Come on. It's real simple. Do what I told you to do. If we just do what he tells us to do, we're going to end up where we need to get. Okay? So until the next time, I love you guys. Shalom. I hope you had a wonderful Sabbath. I know I had a great Sabbath. I feel completely refreshed and rejuvenated. I am ready to conquer the world tonight. I don't know what's going on with me. But anyways, once again, please, if you have any means to support a family who is desperately in need, please look up my friend and please support his GoFundMe page. They would really appreciate any help that they can get. I love you all, and I'll see you next time.